In the twilight of her extraordinary life, the great Queen Elizabeth I, a monarch who had cultivated an image of ageless vitality and a mind of iron, experienced a horrifying and humbling demise. The last few weeks of her life turned into a terrifying ordeal that revealed the dark side of power, the inevitability of mortality, and the frailty of the human spirit. After ruling England for over 44 years, the aging monarch showed not only the toll time takes on all of us, but also the chilling consequences of what happens when a leader's mind begins to betray them. Her Majesty's visible deterioration was a distressing sight. The once famous red hair had thinned, her skin had grown pale, and she had lost almost all of her teeth. But it was her mental state that truly alarmed those around her. Elizabeth, known for her brilliance and vivacious personality, was now suffering from bouts of severe depression and melancholia. Her normally sharp wit dulled, and she spent long periods in a deep gloom, which frightened both her courtiers and physicians. The transformation in the Queen was so startling that Robert Sidney, the Earl of Leicester, remarked in a letter to an adviser, "Her Majesty's indisposition is far worse than I can express." Adding to the growing concern, a deep sense of paranoia began to grip her. Once celebrated for her ability to surround herself with loyal and able courtiers, she now turned on many of those who had served her faithfully for years. She began to distrust those she had once trusted implicitly, believing that they were plotting against her and questioning their motives and loyalties. This shift in behavior was alarming, turning her court into a battleground of suspicion and fear. Her inner turmoil was made worse by a lingering fear of death. Elizabeth had always been afraid of dying, convinced that her death would bring ruin to her kingdom. As her health declined in the last weeks of her life, this fear grew into an obsession. According to reports, she refused to go to bed and spent her final days propped up on cushions on the floor, in a state of conscious rebellion against her own mortality. For 4 days, she stayed like this, refusing food, medicine, and even the pleas of her physicians and closest advisers to lie down. Instead, she defiantly sat or lay on the floor, stubbornly refusing to accept the natural order of life and death. This prolonged struggle between the Queen and her own mortality created an atmosphere of terror in the palace. The kingdom, already shaken by rumors of the Queen's failing health, was plunged into a state of silent, collective terror as they watched their symbol of strength and stability visibly weakening before their eyes. Elizabeth's refusal to accept her fate sent shockwaves through the country. People across England, from the highest nobles to the commoners, were gripped by a dreadful premonition of the coming storm. They knew that when the Queen finally succumbed to her illness, the political and social fabric of their nation would be irrevocably altered. Elizabeth had no direct heir and had famously refused to name one, preferring instead to keep the court in a perpetual state of uncertainty. This tactic, while effective during her reign, now loomed over her final moments as a terrifying prospect. With no clear successor, the kingdom teetered on the edge of chaos, and the very future of England seemed to hang in the balance. One of the most prominent figures in the Queen's inner circle was Robert Cecil, a man who had served the crown faithfully for decades. He understood the gravity of the situation and the need for swift and decisive action. while respecting the Queen's wishes during her illness. He also knew that the kingdom's well-being was too important to ignore. So he began a secret mission, reaching out to James VI of Scotland, the son of Elizabeth's rival, Mary, Queen of Scots, who had been executed earlier in her reign. Negotiations commenced with the Scottish king, aiming to secure his claim to the English throne. As these clandestine talks progressed, the drama in the Queen's chamber intensified. Every hour seemed to bring new challenges, and the atmosphere grew heavy with tension and apprehension. The court, already rattled by the Queen's strange behavior, was now thrown into turmoil by the knowledge that the end was near. Word spread like wildfire through the corridors of power that Elizabeth was on her deathbed, and that the kingdom was on the brink of a monumental shift. Whispers turned to anxious murmurs, then to open discussions as everyone grappled with the implications of the impending change. In the midst of this upheaval, the Queen's condition took another disturbing turn. Elizabeth, with her mind clouded by illness and fear, began to mumble incoherently about plots and conspiracies. She spoke of enemies both real and imagined, her words fragmented and disjointed, yet filled with a haunting prescience. These unsettling ramblings revealed the depths of her despair and offered a glimpse into the turmoil that raged within her failing mind. As the final act of her reign, the Queen made a decision that shocked and saddened those around her. Elizabeth, in a moment of lucidity amidst her illness, realized the gravity of her failure to secure a successor. The weight of this choice, made over a lifetime, now pressed down on her with the force of a shroud. Faced with the prospect of plunging the kingdom into chaos, she summoned her closest advisers, her voice weak but resolute, and expressed her deep regret over her past decisions. In a heartbreaking admission, she acknowledged the error of her ways, realizing too late the consequences of her actions. With her life ebbing away and the future of her kingdom hanging in the balance, Elizabeth's final moments were filled with a profound sense of sorrow and regret. The once indomitable monarch, the Virgin Queen who had ruled with an iron fist and an unwavering determination, was now brought to her knees by the harsh realities of her mortality. In her final moments, as the cold hand of death approached, she found herself stripped of the power and glory that had defined her entire life. This humbling experience offered a stark reminder of the transient nature of power and the ultimate equality of all humans. In the face of death, then came the night of March 24th, 1603, when the long and glorious Tudor dynasty came to an end. As the sun set over England, Elizabeth I breathed her last breath, quietly slipping into eternal slumber. Her eyes closed for the final time, bringing to a close the extraordinary life of one of England's most iconic monarchs. News of the Queen's death spread like wildfire across the kingdom, eliciting a range of emotions from the populace. While many felt a profound sense of loss for the monarch, who had been a constant presence in their lives for decades, others couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The years of uncertainty and speculation surrounding the Queen's succession had taken a heavy toll on the nation, and now, with the passing of Elizabeth I, a new chapter was set to begin. As the people of England mourned the loss of their beloved Queen, they did so knowing that they were not only bidding farewell to a monarch, but to an era. The image of the Virgin Queen, who had become synonymous with the Tudor dynasty and the nation itself, was now fading into legend. The news of the Queen's death reached Scotland, where King James VI was preparing to take his place on the English throne as James I. Upon hearing the news, the Scottish monarch wasted no time in making preparations for his journey south. With a sense of duty and determination, he set out to claim his newfound heritage, eager to begin his reign as the first Stuart king of England. And so it was that the Tudor dynasty, which had graced the English throne for over 70 years, came to an end with the death of Elizabeth I. Her remarkable life and reign had left an indelible mark on England, shaping its history, culture, and identity in profound ways. As the nation prepared to welcome a new monarch, it did so with a mixture of hope and nostalgia, forever cherishing the memory of the Virgin Queen who had captured the hearts and minds of her people. One of the most poignant symbols of this transition was a gold ring that had been a fixture on the Queen's finger for many years. When Elizabeth passed away, this ring was carefully removed, a ritualistic act that signified the end of an era. The ring itself bore a secret, a hidden carving thought to depict a Tudor rose entwined with a Stuart thistle, a subtle nod to the merging of two royal lineages. This small yet significant detail revealed the Queen's final choice, a parting gesture that hinted at her acceptance of the changing of the guard. As the ring was taken from her cold fingers, it served as a tangible reminder of the legacy she was leaving behind and the new chapter that was about to unfold. Her Majesty's legendary wit and intellect, which had served her so well throughout her extraordinary life, began to fail her in her final days. Those who had marveled at her razor-sharp intelligence and captivating charm now witnessed a profound erosion of the very qualities that had made her famous. The Queen who had once held court with such grace and dignity was reduced to a shadow of her former self, unable to engage in the lively banter and astute observations that had been her hallmark. Instead, she lapsed into a state of profound sorrow, her eyes clouded with confusion and her words fragmented and disjointed. The mental acuity that had been a source of strength and inspiration to her subjects was now diminished, leaving behind a haunting reminder of the frailty that lay beneath the surface of even the most formidable of leaders. On the evening of March 24, 1603, Elizabeth I died in her sleep, bringing the long and glorious Tudor dynasty to a close. Her Majesty's breathing grew shallower, her pulse began to fade, and her eyes, which had once sparkled with life and purpose, slowly lost their luster. As the night wore on, her breathing grew more labored, and the flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the faces of those gathered around her bedside. At last, as the first rays of dawn began to illuminate the eastern sky, Elizabeth I took her final breath, her head resting peacefully on her velvet pillow. The room was filled with a profound silence, broken only by the soft sobs of her ladies-in-waiting. The Virgin Queen, who had reigned over England for 44 years, was no more. As the news of her death spread throughout the kingdom, a collective gasp echoed through the streets of London and beyond. People stopped in their tracks, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and sadness. The Queen who had been a constant presence in their lives for so long was gone. Her Majesty's passing was not merely a political event, but a profound loss for the nation. The image of the Virgin Queen, who had become synonymous with England itself, was now fading into legend, and as the people of England mourned the passing of their beloved monarch, they did so knowing that they were bidding farewell to an era